How and why do we make the key decisions in our lives? In his 60s, Mark Goldsmith quit a high-paying job in New York to help young offenders stay out of jail.
I was in the corporate world for over 35 years. It is nothing like the satisfaction I get today because I don't have a bad day at getting out and staying out.
Sally Bingham was a wealthy mother of 3 who'd never been to college. In her 50s, she had an epiphany and went on to help change the world.
We never know what's deep inside us, and we never know how far we can go. If anyone had asked me 20 years ago that I would be going around and making speeches about protecting God's creation, I would have thought that they had been smoking something. But now I find that this is who I am. This is what I was called to be.
These people have all reinvented themselves in the second half of life. How did they do it? Why did they do it? Is it possible for any of us to do it? Can we start life again as an individual, as a family, as a community, as a nation?
We've done community development work in each one.
Oh, okay.
So when we have guests
in. This production, Reinventing Yourself, was made possible by Presbyterian Health Foundation, supporting medical research to save and enhance life. The Oklahoma Business Roundtable, and VOW, Visionary Oklahoma Women.
Today, life expectancy for most of us is longer than it's ever been. A bad economy may mean we have to retrain or get another job, but how much do we ever really reinvent ourselves? And if we did, what would make us do it? And how would we do it? Not so long ago, most of us expected to work in the same company or the same job for 30 years or more, gradually assuming a bit more responsibility perhaps, and then looking forward to a peaceful retirement. Many women expected to devote their lives to bringing up children and grandchildren and being a good wife. Sally Bingham was one of those.
My mother was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama. She was a Southern belle, and for her and her age group, being married was all that mattered. So she raised me to believe that one had to be married, and you were absolutely worthless as a human being, as a woman, unless you were on the arm of a successful man. And then, of course, we had to assess successful, and normally that meant money.
Today, Sally Bingham is an ordained minister of the Episcopal Church and head of Interfaith Power and Light, an environmental organization with global reach, which she founded. She was one of only 30 religious and spiritual representatives to be invited to the international conference at Davos in 2011. She flies across the country and around the world, demonstrating how people of faith can take an active role in saving energy.
I first felt a calling to be involved with religion in the environment when I was in the pews in a church, and I was well aware that there are environmental organizations protecting the planet. I was a trustee for one of them. But to me, that wasn't going to do it. That wasn't enough. That didn't bring the moral, it didn't bring the ethical value, and it was quite partisan. Environmentalists are most often liberal Democrats. I didn't see this as a partisan issue. It seemed to me it was a religious issue. How we treat our neighbor comes from inside our soul. How we treat our neighbors is a spiritual issue. So much of the excitement in this work is talking to students who really understand that the world is in peril and are willing to make changes and do something about it. Sometimes I wish that I had more time.
In a few short years, Sally Bingham, housewife and mother of 3, has become a celebrity. How did she reinvent herself? And why did she want to?
This is the most wonderful gift that my children could have given me on my 70th birthday. And I'll show you some of the pictures. All of this countryside in the back of these pictures is where I grew up, just running around as a child of nature, making a fort and getting lost in the woods and going barefoot in the creek. At the beginning of those teenage years, I was crazy for boys' attention. And that went on for a good part of my life. I was a hellion as an 8-year-old, but I was a super hellion by the time I was a young teenager. Here is a picture of my first wedding. I married a gorgeous man, and within 4 years, I had 2 beautiful children. My son, Steve, who's now 42 years old, his stepfather and Sarah riding bareback. I think I was a really good mother, but in terms of being a player in the world or making the world a better place, I was a taker. I was somebody who enjoyed what affluency could give me. I wore my bikini and went to the country club and sat reading magazines, and, you know, that's what I thought was important in those days. It seems like a long time ago to me, and I also look so young, and I was so naive that I think it really shows. In the mid-'80s, I was invited to be a trustee for Environmental Defense Fund, invited to go on their board of directors. And that's when I made the connection with my faith. I didn't know of any clergy who were talking about environmental stewardship from the pulpit. It seemed to be something completely foreign, and what I found very distressing was putting my hands together and praying for a reverence for the earth, along with all the other people in the congregation, and then trashing it with either our big cars or our throwaway waste and things like that. So it made me think that there's a responsibility that people of faith have for protecting creation.
To answer the questions that her church wouldn't ask, Sally Bingham enrolled in college age 45 and then went on to seminary. The environment became her passion, or was it something more?
I was looking for a quiet place that was somewhere near home that I didn't have to go miles and miles away. And Angel Island, out in the middle of San Francisco Bay, was the perfect place to come. I was in seminary trying to discern whether or not this was a true call from God. Was I being called by something that was above and beyond myself and my own ego? And I was one person who had been rather frivolous in their life. But I left Angel Island a new person. I needed to be in a quiet place, in a high place. I wanted to be as close to God as I could get. When I was as high as I could get and as close to God in wilderness as I could be, I had to be exceedingly quiet, still, and figure out what's going on in my heart. Where is the real call? Is it something I had made up? Was God asking me to get involved in this ministry? I decided that I would go through the motions of a Eucharistic ministry. And what I mean by that, through the Thanksgiving, the prayer of Thanksgiving, and hold up my hands and do the sign of the cross and invite people to celebrate this Last Supper with me, and did it make sense? And when I broke the bread and realized it was a symbol of how dependent we are upon creation for our own existence, I went, aha, this is mine. This is my ministry. This is real, and this is what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing, calling people to protect God's creation. I went up there as a lay person, and I came down a priest. And this is where it happened, in that moment when I decided to reinvent myself.
Sally was eventually accepted into the Episcopal Church as a canon of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. Her special responsibility is the environment.
I have found that these changes have been joyous. Hard, because sometimes you're not sure you can make that step that you're either asking yourself to do or someone else has asked you to. But once you've done it, you go, wow, I can do it. I can remember coming out of having either made a speech or coming out of the cathedral, having had a standing ovation after my first sermon and going, whoa, you know, why didn't I do this years and years and years ago? It is tremendously exciting. And to find that you're not the person that you were before, but you're a whole new, reinvented person, if you will, and how much fun it is.
Today, Sally's organization, Interfaith Power and Light, leads the fight to put solar panels on every place of worship, even her own.
This was a particularly challenging project. When the roof was needing repair 10 years ago, and I brought up the subject of putting solar on the roof, a lot of scratching of heads and wondering not only what was going to be the cost of it, but one of the silliest things they said was, we've never done this before. And that, I hear that a lot. We have put solar panels on mosques, synagogues, all different denominations of churches all over the country. And it's fairly easy in most places, but one of the hardest projects that I've ever been involved in was putting solar on the roof of the very congregation where I'm involved. God gave us, besides us having oil and gas, we were also given wind and sun. So why not use the God-given resources, and no better place than on the roof of a congregation? Hi, everyone. I'm sorry to be late. I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 sec and tell you where I've been, which is renewing my vows up at Grace Cathedral with the bishop, which was great. And then you all probably know the reason Gerald Durley isn't here is because he is in Washington meeting with President Obama.
Today, Interfaith Power and Light operates in more than 30 states, from Texas to Hawaii, from Alaska to New York.
I've never given you a full report on Davos, which was quite an experience, but more about meeting people.
Sally Bingham has started something big, but her core beliefs are still rooted in the San Francisco Bay that originally inspired her. Her personal transformation, her reinvention, was triggered by the spiritual impact of this place. Every year, on the Feast of St. Francis, she holds a small communion service on the beach, right opposite Angel Island, where she had her epiphany.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Lift up your hearts.
We lift them to the Lord.
Let us give thanks to the Lord our
She invites
God.
her congregation to share her joy.
One of the things that's really important for us all to do is be listening to what makes us happy. What turns you on? What speaks to you that makes you smile? What brings joy into your life? And when it happens, follow that. Follow that joy right to wherever it takes you, because it is an extraordinary experience.
20 years ago on Angel Island, Sally imagined performing the Eucharist. Today, she does it for real.
Almighty God, now and forever. Amen. Amen. The body of Christ, the bread of heaven. The body of Christ, the bread of heaven. The body of Christ, the bread of heaven.
Back in 2007, Sally's story first came to the attention of Civic Ventures, a San Francisco-based non-profit which was looking for candidates for the Purpose Prize. Its president is Jim Emmerman.
When we created the Purpose Prize, we were of the belief that we could inspire an explosion of creativity among a huge part of the population with incredible talents. And here we have a generation, the baby boom generation, 78 million people moving into this stage of life where they have an opportunity to reinvent themselves, to really draw on all their experiences, all their talent, and help solve these problems that need a human solution.
In the 6 years of its existence, Purpose Prizes have been awarded to people all over the country who have reinvented themselves and found a new mission in life. Inez Killingsworth was originally a janitor in a school in Cleveland. We often let our work define who we are, but Inez reinvented herself in a big way.
When you know something is wrong and you don't do anything about it or try to do anything about it, you know, why are you here?
We've done 35 miles since March.
This is where Inez works today.
Angie.
More on Angie.
She's president and founder of a nationally recognized community organization. They help people deal with the banks during the ongoing foreclosure crisis. In the office, Inez set up rows of tombstones to remind visitors how many homes have been lost to foreclosure by people in Midwestern communities.
My organization is ESOP, better known as Empowering and Strengthening Ohio's People. ESOP's mission is to organize leadership around issues that impact the neighborhood, that would empower people to take action. Fight for themselves and other people. Fight for your neighborhood. Fight for, may I say, the rights that you have. Don't just roll over. You know, those are things that ESOP is about.
At this spontaneous office meeting, a colleague sounds a siren to announce that 6 more householders have kept their homes, thanks to Inez and her team.
And they were on the verge of walking away and leaving the house. But after some intense one-on-one discussions between the 3 of us, the lender and this family, they decided to accept a modification and they're going to be keeping their home.
So we're sitting up there saying, this house is still a $80,000, $100,000 house. Has no idea that within 24 hours, this house has been stripped and it's moved on to something else.
I think they've been doing this so long that way and getting away with it. They never dreamed that it would catch up with them. You can't keep sweeping dirt up under the rug. Eventually you get nuts under there, and that's what has happened. Now they don't know what to do.
But where had Inez Killingsworth come from? What was her background?
I work for the Cleveland Board of Education, and I was in building operations. And sometimes when people ask me that, they say, "What did you do?" I said, "I did a little bit of everything." So I was cleaner, I was doing security, whatever those needs were in the building, When I retired, I thought, okay, I will just find something relaxing. And it was right during this foreclosure crisis thing. And I'm going like, oh, I can't do that. The problem was we had high rates of predatory lending. Issue a loan 1 year, the next year it was in default. We had houses but no people, and those vacant houses became attraction for drug dealers and vandalism.
Inez was born and raised in rural Mississippi, but has lived the last 50 years in Ohio. She'd never seen the sort of urban devastation caused by the financial collapse and the foreclosure crisis. She took it personally.
One of the things that really pumped me with this was this 80-year-old lady that was in housing court, and the judge said, "You need to repair your steps and your porch." She did not have the money to do that. So this little lady invited the predator to refinance her house. Wind up with an $80,000 mortgage, an 80-year-old lady. Can you imagine that? What if this had been my mother and someone had done that to her? I would hope that someone would help my mother.
I bought this house for $39,000, and I owed almost $80,000 at the end of 21 years. Going to ESOP, I own this house.
People come to ESOP for help because they know that we will fight for them.
To confront a major national bank and get it to change its ways takes a special kind of determination.
Oh, here we go. How you doing? Good. We can get all the way up to the CEO. If something is not right, we can escalate that process. Sometimes when we get them to agree to a meeting, we like to do a tour and show them their properties. These are your houses, and this is what you're doing to our community. We are about to come up on 3606 East 76th Street.
Bankers, community leaders, politicians, activists, they've all joined Inez's famous trolley tours around Cleveland.
People look at me and they say, "Here she come again." I say, "Well, here I am." You want to keep me quiet, then you do things that's beneficial for my community. And maybe I'll go and retire.
Inez Killingsworth's organization has helped more than 10,000 families keep their homes so far, and new clients keep arriving.
We help each other,
Today, Inez meets the bankers on more equal terms.
What an esteemed group of people to be a part of and to be honored with. It's really neat.
She knows some of them personally.
It's a great feeling,
And they know her power.
Well, for me, I'm just doing what it is that I do. And I think it's obvious and I'm glad you brought it to our attention, all of the conference rooms that you have, you've named them after communities. That's wonderful. That's great. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you at the
Yeah, I'll be there. It'll be fun.
And again, thank you.
Thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Inez Killingsworth is one of those people for whom a sense of justice was always part of their DNA. I think what she has done and the way that she's created a new persona for herself, that she's become a spokesperson for the disenfranchised people of her state and a strong voice for justice, is an incredible transformation. But I also think it represents the fact that people have this power within them. And if they find the thing that fires them up, that there is no stopping them.
Often, by reinventing yourself, you help others to do the same. Mark Goldsmith won a Purpose Prize in 2008. he had been a successful businessman in Manhattan and discovered a very different calling. One day, by chance, some years ago, he crossed the East River to give a talk in New York's Rikers Island jail. It was a visit that changed his life.
At Rikers Island, there is a 66% recidivism rate, which means that virtually 2 out of 3 young men who enter Rikers Island are coming back to Rikers Island. There are not enough programs available to help them when they get out of either jail or prison to stay out.
He talked like a successful businessman, and everyone listened.
And indeed, I was very fortunate to be working inside of a school called the Horizon Academy on Rikers Island, where they were attending in order to get their GED. He's cutting the deal for me. You gotta walk in. They were listening to me talk to them about hope, that there was another life that they could be leading in this world. But that road had to be paved with education and training.
Half full, right. If it's half empty.
So great was the response to his no-nonsense approach that Mark invented GOSO, getting out and staying out.
400 guys out against a recidivism rate of 66% for 18 to 24-year-old guys. Getting out and staying out guys. Guys who signed up for the program here, stayed in it if they had to go upstate, came to the office in East Harlem. Less than 40 guys are back. That's 10%. Pretty damn good, huh? It's not what I'm doing, it's what you guys are doing. It's what your brothers are doing once you get out.
This was an opportunity to get them the very first day they enter, so that when they first come in, they start thinking about what they're going to do when they get out.
With a resume, and it's a good-looking resume.
The model of the whole program is giving them focus and directions, and maybe this is the first time they ever having focus. And it's the educational portion of it that he demands. It's the look that he demands. Lose the do-rag, pull up your pants, look sharp, present yourself to society as you're ready to be a responsible individual. And it's the greatest thing that I know about. I've been doing this for 23 years.
And we give you plenty of copies, so you're prepared to go out.
Whatever he says he's going to do, he delivers. And these young men have been disappointed by adults all their life. So they finally meet an adult, and it doesn't matter whether he looks different than them or not, that successfully has been able to deliver whatever he says he's going to deliver.
When I hear Mr. Goldsmith, it makes me feel like it gives me that urge to keep going on and not give up on myself. He gives you the opportunity and makes you feel like there are positive things in this world. You don't have to go back to what you were doing when you get out of here.
I started by myself. I worked out of Starbucks. A year and a half later, opened up an office. We then started to build an organization.
In the beginning, it was 1 or 2 guys a day, and now we've gotten to the point in which I actually have to have a calendar to keep track of all the guys, and our filing systems are just overwhelmed with how many clients we get in.
About 4 years ago, I was incarcerated for guns and robbery charges, and while I was staying at Rikers Island C-73, I was introduced to Mr. Goldsmith, and I've been in the program since. I wanted to get into business management. He helped me through that. He sent me books, tuition, as far as anything like correspondence courses if I needed help.
This is a business model. I rely on what I call an ROI. It's a return on our investment. We're willing to invest in these young men. Are they willing to invest in themselves?
Mr. Goldsmith, like I said earlier, sees what nobody else sees. Other people see us as convicts. He sees us as a person that deserves another chance in life. He sees us as a person that deserves to be better than what they are. This program is the best thing that could ever happen to New York.
I have to say he's a pioneer. He's doing things from his heart. He's doing it not for the recognition of it, just for the faces he sees on these individuals when they change their lives. I'm a true believer in helping the community, and that's what he does every day when he comes here.
I was in the corporate world for over 35 years, and I enjoyed my career very much. It is nothing like the satisfaction I get today, because I don't have a bad day at getting out and staying out.
I think after doing this program now for 5 going on 6 years, we start to see these stories and what connects all of these people in a way that we couldn't really have predicted when we started. You know, and these narratives that are common to many of them start to emerge, and you start to see a pattern. One of the things that Civic Ventures discovered at its very origins was the power of older adults being mentors to young people, and how transformative that could be in their lives in a way that nobody else could. That by simply caring about kids, young people, that they were able to give them a sense of their own future when previously they had felt that there was none.
Don Coyhis had all the success many people could wish for. He was a highly successful engineer working on NASA's Apollo missions with different corporations. And then his life came unwound. He started drinking. He had to go right back to his Native American Mohican roots to find his purpose and reinvent himself.
We believe that every tree has a purpose. It has a spirit side to it. Every flower has a purpose, it has a spirit side to it. And so I was chosen a long, long time ago to do this work, but I had to go to the Creator's School of Hard Knocks first in order for me to find out what my purpose was.
Don Coyhis won the Purpose Prize in 2009, but he had started to reinvent himself 20 years earlier.
My first career was working on the NASA project for the Apollo space program. I worked from Apollo 6 through Apollo 13. Then I went to work for a number of corporations. One day I came into work and I sat down in my office and I looked over at this wall and I must have had 30 plaques on that wall. And I says, my God, what are you doing with your life? Is that it? Is it about plaques? So I went to see an elder, and he said, you need to go on a vision quest. And so he took me up in the mountains, and it was there during that 4-day process I had the vision of the white bison. By then I had been in recovery myself. At 30 I was drinking, my family life was falling apart. So I made this vow. I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life taking this recovery message specifically to Native people, so they don't lose their families and their children like I did. At one time, our communities were intact, and then due to some of the things that happened as a result of the U.S. military and the government years ago, today it's connected to suicides, it's connected to other issues that are currently involved in our Native communities.
Don Coyhis started the mission of the white bison to reconnect Native Americans to their roots. That way, the process of healing and reinvention could begin.
There's 3 questions that you cannot answer. One is, why am I? What is my purpose? The second is, who am I? What is my identity? And the third is, where am I going? What is my direction? From time to time, you have to step into the mystery. And not everybody wants to step into the mystery, with you, so you got to do it alone. And I think that's when you build your relationship with the Creator, or you have the elders, you know, telling you to go ahead and do it. Part of our culture is you always have a mentor or an elder working in your life, and you learn that very, very young. And if we bring back the cultural knowledge of the old days, that we should be able to take on issues around alcoholism, domestic violence, the problems that we have today. Typically, the human being up to 40 is kind of selfish, but there comes a point when you're not happy anymore unless you are out helping one another. And I believe myself, I had divine intervention from the Creator. God said, I'm going to use this fool.
Don's mission to the white bison now works with more than 100 tribes, helping people to start their lives over again. Sometimes the need for reinvention and recreation is not just about an individual, but about a whole community, even a nation. These are Chickasaw people recreating the Trail of Tears of the 19th century. United States government policy dictated that many tribes should be moved from their ancestral lands and resettled in what is now Oklahoma. It was known until 100 years ago as Indian Territory. These events triggered a catastrophic collapse in the morale and well-being of many Native Americans, and the Chickasaw were no exception. Largely dependent on federal government support for survival, the Chickasaw as a nation had reached a low point by the 1980s. But then something happened which reignited the sense of self and the sense of purpose in the Chickasaw. What happened? One person who knows is the current governor of the Chickasaw Nation, Bill Anatoby. He became governor in 1987 when things were at their worst and the tribe was nearly bankrupt.
The state of the nation was pretty bad. We had about $11 million in budget, 99.99% federal funds. We had about 250 or so employees, and we needed to do more. And we needed, in order to do more, we had to move away from that federal thumb. Anytime that you're operating federal programs, they tell you what to do.
Governor Anatoby had the vision that if there was some way that we could make the tribe economically self-sufficient, that we wouldn't have to depend solely on the government.
We needed self-determination. We needed to govern ourselves. So in order to do that, we had to create new revenues.
Today, the governor and his team administer a vast and expanding business empire that includes casinos, construction, technology, manufacturing, convenience stores, and a chocolate factory.
In the first year, the fiscal year 1988, we had a balanced budget and continued to look for new resources, new revenues. And today, we have an outlay that exceeds $500 million. We have about 10,500 employees. Now, they're all moving in this one direction, though, and that's to meet our mission, to enhance the overall quality of life of Chickasaw people.
Fellow Chickasaws, the state of the Chickasaw Nation is strong, and with your continued help, the best is yet to come. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the Chickasaw Nation.
But economic progress was only the beginning. To reinvent the Chickasaw Nation, every individual had to be helped to reinvent themselves and change their expectations, especially the children. Every year, the Chickasaw organize a summer arts camp in the town of OETA, Oklahoma. Students, teachers are all members of the tribe. This is an arts camp which produces results. For 2 weeks, the kids will create new works in dance, theatre, visual arts, video production, or music. At the end, they'll be expected to perform their work in front of the entire community. Chickasaw composer Jared Tate teaches an intensive course on musical creativity.
Teaching composition, to me, is so important. You have to be a good teacher to help your kids. You can't skate by. You have to put an enormous amount of energy into what you do because the kids need that.
My name is Aubrey Halford. I am 12 years old and I'm from OETA, Oklahoma. Music is basically everything that I do. I live for music.
My name is Cruz Berry, and I'm 18, and I'm from Lone Grove, Oklahoma. I've really enjoyed it. Having a teacher that's so receptive to new ideas, and you just have complete creative freedom to do whatever you want to do. I was trying to write some stuff this year, and I was just at a complete loss for any kind of melody. And then
starting from scratch, the students have just 2 weeks to compose a new piece of music. On the last night, their work will be performed by a professional string quartet at a concert for 2,000 people.
This was a major experiment for you, so let's talk a little bit about the very beginning.
I'm trying to imitate the call and answers beginning of a stomp dance.
For me, composition became a marriage of an identity of a classically trained musician and an American Indian. I have this drive and this need to help other kids find the same thing that I found.
Very extremely hard to notate.
But what I think is really cool about what you did is that even if I don't know stomp dancing, I think the gesture sounds really, really cool. Where does this come from? It's such a wonderful thing and a wonderful experience and such a deep honor to be a mentor.
Mentoring, teaching others one-on-one, personally, is a central element in Governor Anatubby's vision. We learn by teaching.
So, Governor, we're going to have you have a seat at the piano.
When the governor stops by Jared Tate's music class, 3 generations are teaching each other.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm very, very pleased with the work that Governor Anatubby has done. He is very supportive of the arts. He wants it to be a part of our lives, and he wants to be around it. And so for any artist to have a leader like that supporting the arts that heavily is, of course, a dream come true.
Jared teaches me about as much as I would support him. Mentorship is important in any venue. I believe that's part of my role as governor.
It changes keys more.
The Summer Arts Academy is an example of that. You take a young person that has the ability in music, for instance, if they're challenged and they're given an opportunity to develop that skill or that talent, it gives them more self-esteem, it gives them the opportunity to do better, to be creative, and to do better in life. That's, in essence, why that is important.
How you doing?
Thank you for coming by.
Oh,
We're doing improvisations.
Okay.
But how does this work? How do you help other people to reinvent themselves?
I believe it's all about empowerment. You're empowering the people that work with you, and you're empowering the people that you serve.
They have to just move with the feeling more than a...
How do you empower people? They must be released to do what they can do and do it the very best that they can do it, and be given the opportunity on occasion to make a mistake so that they can learn from that mistake and do better at what they do.
Ready? Okay, ready, go.
We need to help people do the same thing in their own lives. They really need to be able to develop their own capacities.
We're about to begin. First of all...
Back at the music class, the professional string quartet has arrived for rehearsals. They have just one day to learn the students' compositions before they perform them tomorrow night.
This is Aubrey Halford. She plays the flute, and this is Aubrey's first composition, and she is 12 years old.
It just took my piece to a whole new level. I couldn't imagine how it sounded in my little dark piano room. When all the parts were put together, it just sounded so much better than I had imagined.
The process of writing a new piece is, it's really fascinating. When I sit down with students, and in particular the students that are doing this for the first time, I know for sure they're going to have something that they'll pleasantly surprise themselves with, and I know will make me proud. It's just like a given. But you don't know that at that moment. And every day when they come to a new realization, you're like, aha, and you see them on the path more and more and deeper and deeper. I can't explain how wonderful of a process that is. It's almost magical.
This year I got to the camp and I really didn't know, I couldn't think of anything. So Jared's like, rhythms and time signatures. It's always cool, like, especially to hear someone else's interpretation of something that you've written. I came in with nothing and then I ended up with like 6 pages, tons of time signature changes, 28 in the whole piece, just experimenting.
I believe that this experience of composing a piece, creating something out of nothing, so to speak, is easily transposed to any experience in life. If they wrote a piece that they never expected they could do, well, they can do something else that they never expected to.
What works on the individual level works in the big picture too. The Chickasaw as a nation have reinvented themselves in the last 20 years. Their new economic success allows them to offer their people a range of social services that will be the envy of most Americans. Job creation, quality education and housing, services for seniors, and great health care.
We set some pretty big goals. We wanted for every Chickasaw citizen who needed an education, we wanted to give them the opportunity for that education. And when someone needed housing, we wanted to be there to help them with their housing. and in healthcare. We wanted to be able to do the same, and then we go right down the list. So we had some pretty broad goals in the very beginning.
This is basically right now.
3 years ago, they were just discussing a new $150 million hospital to be built just south of town. 2 years ago, construction began.
What you see in front of you is the Chickasaw Nation Medical Center. It's a brand new state-of-the-art hospital, including our outpatient clinics, and it's approximately 370,000 square feet. This will literally be the hub of our healthcare system.
Today, the hospital and health center are open and flourishing. But that's not all. A new cultural center is open, putting the Chickasaw back in touch with their roots.
Who were and who are the Chickasaw people? We know pretty much who we are today, but how did we get here? Any people need to know who they are and where they've been, and about the people that came before them. A lot of the mistakes that people make are historical. If you know what mistakes were made before today, you can avoid those mistakes.
Before you can set about reinventing yourself in the future, you need to understand who you are now, and you need to acknowledge who you were. It's Friday, showtime at the Summer Arts Academy. In front of the governor, parents and friends, the music students will unveil not just a new composition, but a new self-confidence. This will be a world premiere.
And let's just enjoy some music. And the first work we're going to listen to is by Aubrey Halford, and it's entitled The Calling. I have to admit that I have nerves because I want this performance to go so well for them, and I want them just to walk home on cloud 9. When the kids leave the academy, the biggest thing that I want them to feel is a sense of joy and self-worth. I want them to see themselves as important people.
It's incredible because you can say, I did that, I wrote that, that is mine.
I really want our people to be successful. We will have a strong nation in the future if we're able to help our young people to be educated and develop the talents that they have, regardless of where those talents are.
Joy, self-esteem, a sense of purpose, discovering your talents. Whether it's all about a nation, a community, a family, or an individual, reinventing yourself is all about that.
I think absolutely every one of us has the ability to make changes in our lives, to go off on adventures that you never thought you could do, but in taking these little steps forward, you find that you really can do it.
You can say, you know, how can I do it? It's just do it. Just take off and start doing it, and you'd be surprised at the joy that you will have, you know, with doing it, because it was something that was inside you all the time.
But you have to want to. You have to be willing to take a little bit of risk And it's super exciting.
Let's give it up for our string quartet from Oklahoma City University.
For more information about this film, Reinventing Yourself, please visit stateofcreativity.com. This production, Reinventing Yourself, was made possible by Presbyterian Health Foundation, supporting medical research to save and enhance life. The Oklahoma Business Roundtable. And VOW, Visionary Oklahoma Women.